As Hans Olsen has moved on to the corporate world, we're looking for the next great Utah sports radio talent.
There's something for everyone.
While we do that, you get stuck with this guy.
Hey, everybody, here's our star.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, folks, let's get it. It's another edition of the show. Scott Gerard, and man, I'm fired up for this. Lloyd's telling me to turn my mic down. I'm just too fired up, man. Tim Lacomb's hanging out with us for the next couple of days.
He's burning hot in here tonight. Scotty's burning hot. I tweeted this out. I'm here to actually kind of do like therapy for you guys. You know? I'm good for the soul when you're down a touch, when you've lost, the connection to someone close and dear.
Man down.
Man down. Bring Lacombe in, and he'll rally the troops.
So if you don't know who Tim Lacombe is, first off, shame on you. Second of all,
that's a you problem.
Yeah, that's a you problem. But second of all, Timmy was longtime assistant coach, cut his teeth with Rick Majerus at the University of Utah.
And we got stories to tell there. I mean, we could fill an hour.
I'm sure you could. Probably one of the funniest radio segments I heard. I think you, Van Horn, and I think Britton were all on the air talking about Rick Majerus stories together.
I think we piped them all in, and that was good radio. We chuckled, and I think some of us, sweat a little bit because there was fear involved anytime he was involved. But we had a great time. I've been in this state a long time.
Yeah.
I like to tell people I think I'm the Forrest Gump of Utah sports. Like if you look closely in just about every frame of a big moment, somewhere I was there. So we'll have some fun. I've got a lot of friends, and we'll talk about the goings on, but bring people in that can also help move the needle.
Yeah, have some fun for sure. A lot to break down. We got college basketball to talk about, NBA, the trade deadline. Of course, Tim, you hear him on the Jazz Pre-Half and Post, and spent a ton of time down at BYU on Dave Rowe's staff. So whether it's been the Utes in the national championship game or Jimmermania, you've been a part of it.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And the coolest part to me isn't that you're a part of it, but you have those kinships.
Yeah.
And next week, in fact, Jimmer Fredette's number is being retired and hung in the rafters at the Marriott Center. They have a big ceremony that we're all going back to. And I can't wait. I just can't wait to see people. So to me, it's the relationships. It's the storytelling. It's the laughing about all the stuff that has transpired and will transpire.
What, does that feel like? We're coming up on, 15 years on that now?
Yes, we are. In fact, we bought our house in Provo in 2010, and I tell people it's the house that Jimmer built because we got a little extra bonus money for making the Sweet 16 I didn't know about. And so, we bought our house, and we actually just sold our house in Provo, and we're going to move north. And so, it has been 15 years since Jimmermania.
That's crazy. Have you ever been around anything quite like that?
No, it was amazing. I tell people all the time, we pulled into Texas to play TCU in Dallas. Late in the year, it was prior to the tournament. And we pulled up, and I swear to you, like I'm in a band, we play places, and we don't attract crowds though. Just, our wives and close friends. But like we pulled up, and it was like Guns N' Roses or the Beatles even were there. It was the entire hotel entry was packed with people, balls, jerseys, shoes. And we literally had to sneak him off the back of the bus and out and into a different door. It got pretty crazy. So, yes, it was definitely one of the more wild things I experienced in all the time that I was involved in sport.
So, speaking of college basketball, let's get it. Time for your starting lineup right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, where you've got the Cougars, losers now of 3 in a row, dropping a tough one to Oklahoma State last night. Kansas, you understand. Arizona, you understand. Oklahoma State, not so much on that one.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I watched Oklahoma State play Utah on Saturday in the Huntsman Center, and I just kind of put a little flag in my head, like that's not going to be an easy game in Stillwater. Stillwater's a quirky place. Have you ever called a game there?
I've never been to Stillwater, no.
It's a quirky place. They're right on top of you, literally. It's got a little bit more of a high school kind of WCC gym feel to it, but it's bigger. And so you got to get used to playing there. And, BYU struggled with starts. So just in the back of my head is like, they're playing Houston on Saturday in the Marriott Center. Their minds may be down the road because this team, Oklahoma State, is so well coached. And they do what they did last night. They turned BYU over. They got the ball sticking in the first half, and BYU turned it over, I think, 8 times in the first 8 minutes of that game. And, the defense was not good. I think Oklahoma State had their way getting to the paint, scoring, getting kickouts, and their energy just kind of won the day. So a disappointment, and I think a lot of things we can unpack from it for sure.
Well, I think a few things that we take away from this for sure is that when you have something happen once or twice, you're like, okay, well, that sucks. That's got to get better. But then when it happens over a consistent amount of time, we've got a trend, and you have to address it. Now, look, Kevin Young's forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know. You've forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know. But you've got to somehow get out of the gate quickly, and I don't know what that is. We see a lot of coaches where we look at the coaching and say, okay, they got outcoached in the second half because somebody made adjustments at halftime, and that's where we look at coaching and be like, okay, they weren't able to keep up to the adjustments. Whereas BYU, it seems like right out of the gate they start slow, and I don't know if that's look. I don't want to nitpick, but I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if that's energy. I don't know if that's leadership inside the locker room. I can't wrap my brain around why BYU, with that kind of talent, is consistently slow getting out of the gate.
I got one word for you. It's at least my theory, and that word is connection. Like anything you do, and you made a point, is it the coach's fault? Is it the player's fault? No, it's a group project, right? There's people with accountability. But at the ultimately, if that thing's going to work, it's got to be a little bit of everybody. And what I see right now going on with BYU is I think everybody's a little too concerned with themselves. And you see it on the offensive end with the ball sticking and guys trying to make plays that aren't there. The objective of basketball, get 2 on the ball. If you get 2 on the ball, then you're trying to move the ball quick enough to beat that rotation. And the thing that really made me hone in on that word was after the BYU game. I flipped over to the game you were calling last night.
In the pit,
which, again, you want to talk about a hard place to play.
Yeah.
And very rarely do you play there as a visitor and with 5 minutes to go watch those people start filing out, which you saw last night, which is an awesome thing too, because they're loud, they're belligerent, they're in your business, and when you make them go home, there's nothing better. But Utah State, that same word, they played connected. When somebody stepped to take on penetration, instantly someone slid in behind to protect. And the weak side then dropped. And, ball contests. And you told me, I asked you about it, but you told me that that's a huge part of what Calhoun does.
Yeah.
Is when a guy's got the ball, you should be doing everything you can, which is trace it. They're trying to make a pass. If you can somehow deflect it and go the other way, man, that's a win. So I just don't see that level of connection in the BYU program right now. And, they went through a little bit of that last year with the catching situation. They were all kind of trying to wait for him to get his emotions in check, and then they finally moved on, put Mag in the game. I just think as a whole they are disconnected.
How do you create connection then?
Authenticity. I think it's easy when things are going wrong, whether it be in life, business, relationships, but mostly, and what we're talking about, the context of sport, there has to be accountability. Like, if I come in here today and take, how many Emmys have you won or whatever? I mean, like Sportsman of the Year. If I bring you down, and we walk out and you're like, Timmy, you were horrible today, and then I can actually try to figure out how to get better. But the bottom line is accountability, authenticity is the only way to do it. And I do think there is a big piece of this where they've got one guy who's making a ton of money, one guy when things are good that gets all the attention, one guy that's faces all over Times Square. I think that's great for exposure. How's it affecting the team?
Well, I mean, we just referenced the Jimmer thing. You were part of a team that had a superstar on that team. Now, granted, there's no NIL money, but he was the face of college basketball, not just BYU. He was the face of college basketball for a good stretch of time, and yet it never felt like that team resented him. And I'm not saying that's going on at BYU right now, but I do really wonder when you've got that kind of a superstar on a team, if guys are like, okay, I got to get mine because I know he's going to get his. And you worry a little bit about that. I remember Kevin Young was on the radio, and I asked him, do you ever get concerned about the financial inequality inside of a locker room. And he's like, no, we run this like a pro team. Everybody knows that this is your max player, this is your role player, this is your mid-level guy. And he said it should be the same here. And people know their roles and should understand it. And I think for the most part it's worked. And I'm not even saying that's an issue at BYU. I'm just trying to get to the root of the problem. And I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's the issue either, but from watching teams try to figure out how to assemble and be the best form of what they can be over a 23-year period, I do know that it seems like the connection piece is missing. And if someone steps up, they're kind of wondering, is someone going to is somebody got my back here, right? And oftentimes there's confusion, miscommunication. So really just to be able to get on the same page, get everybody to play with that same level of intensity, effort, and know when you're in a tough spot, somebody's going to help you.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I really, I've watched a bunch of practices with Jared Calhoun just because of my connection to the team. And I've really admired their ability to, it's all about help the helper and all those little fundamentals that when you double a guy in the corner, that another guy is rotating because he's going to kick it out to a guy on the wing to shoot the three. And there's a guy right in his face. Not saying the Utah State's been perfect by any means. They've had an up and down season. But there is that rallying point of when things aren't going well, we have to bet on ourselves. We have to come back and we have to rally it around ourselves. We got to find a way to figure this out. So somehow in that BYU locker room, and look, the door's not closed on BYU. They're going to be an NCAA tournament. They're going to be a reasonably high seed. They're going to have great opportunities, but you got to have that internal, fortitude to say, we got this. We're going to be okay. You do your job. I'll do my job. You do this and we'll be okay. But I don't know if that comes from the coaching or the leadership. I think it's got to come from leadership. But also my other question here is when you patchwork a team together and everybody's doing it, and sometimes you're going to hit, sometimes you're going to miss. And when I say hit and miss, I'm not talking about individual players. I'm talking about bringing guys in that can connect to each other.
And actually move the ball.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And sometimes it's the luck of the draw because you've got so many guys out there and your window to recruit and bring them in is so short that you have to go all in on guys quickly. And sometimes you're not able to do your research. You're not able to really learn more about who they are and how they're going to play with teammates and all that stuff. You just have to go because it's an old Wild West. It's like that land grab in Far and Away. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was such a good show.
You got Nicole Kidman on the back of your horse, and you just got to go out and plot your land and go grab it.
And if she's on the back of the horse, who cares if you have a lakefront view?
No.
Things are going to be okay.
Yeah, you could be, have a barn out in Tooele, and
Nicole, will you make me some eggs? I like the salsa.
They were a little hard last time, over easy. But honestly, when you, I think BYU can fix this. I'm not too overly concerned about BYU. The sky's not falling. They just got to get back to fundamentals.
They do. And honestly, to your point, they played Connecticut. If you watch stretches where they fought to get back into that game, like the fight is there and their talent level is there. It's just got to be one of those things where they all sit in a room and say, hey, man, I'm going to do better at doing my job. And that happens in everything. My wife and I have had several companionship inventories where she's called me on the carpet on certain things. So the bottom line is you're always in evolution.
Yeah.
And so, BYU is a NCAA. I just think it's funny, though, when AJ got here, that the instant thought was we're going to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Because that's a slap in the face to anybody who's ever tried to do that.
Yeah.
Because there is way more to that than just having the number one player. Ask Jabari Parker about that, right? Like his college deal didn't go, he was going to be this, that, and the other, and they didn't make the Final Four. Or they didn't. So it's hard. And to your point, it makes me wonder if the less important piece of this is going to be stars at some point, and it's going to be role definition and roster construction.
Well,
sorry.
No, you're fine.
There's one example I just want to use. So everybody knows when we went to the Sweet 16 that year that we lost a real key piece down the stretch in our center in Brandon Davies. And we went and recruited that summer to go get a guy who could be glue. If we got it in any kind of situation, he was big enough. His name's Logan Magnuson, Wasatch High School. Logan played at Salt Lake Community College. They won a national championship when he played there. Won state championships at Wasatch. His AAU teams won everywhere they went. And so that meant something to us. And you would not walk into a gym at Salt Lake and pick him, probably 1, 2, or 3, but there were intangibles. And so we brought him in. He hardly played all year long. We put him in the game in the NCAA tournament. I think the game against Wofford in that first round is like 4 points. And they're charging on us, and we're still trying to pick up the pieces from figuring out how to play without Brandon. And Logan comes into the game and calmly knocks down 2 threes in 3 possessions and gives us the buffer we need. He fights, he rebounds, he does little things in the minutes he's in. But nobody talks about that. But that's why we beat Wofford that night, right? And so you've got to have guys you can count on. And I think in Utah we're missing the Utah kids still. I think there's still a bunch of Utah kids that can fill these rosters instead of maybe a guy who's transferred 3 times, is looking at your place as a check, and is going to play there as an 8-month mercenary. Bring somebody in here for 3 or 4 years that'll die to play for you, and it's going to develop. And if you need something, they're going to do it. That's where I think this needs to go.
Well, the other night when you saw BYU play Kansas, the best player on the court was Richie Saunders.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And he's a guy who, a perfect example, we recruited him starting in the 9th grade. And I'll never forget, we were in Vegas, and we went into a gym. Coach went into one, I went into the other, and they had not seen Richie play. He was not on a quote-unquote shoe team. He was not a guy that the high-end AAU guys here in the state go and pick. So he was actually playing on a non-sponsored team. So I went and watched him, and he blew me away. His effort, his intensity, most importantly, his will to win. And he would make the right play. He got into a tough situation. 2 came to him. That ball moved quick. So you could tell he was a guy. So we offered him then. But I thought when I first saw him play at BYU, he's an NBA guy in the ilk of like Caruso.
Mm-hmm.
Just, again, the guy that you can call on your bench and say, go stop that guy for 8 minutes. And so I think Richie's got a bright future. But I'm with you. I think he was – Peterson's pretty darn good, but he only played half the game. So, yeah, the guy that played that whole game and had a huge impact on it, Saunders, was phenomenal. So
when you get back to finding glue guys, finding guys, you look at the NBA now, and I think that's we have the era of the dream teams where, you'd have the Miami Heat try to build up a super team, and then somebody would try to match with their own super team. Now it feels like, you know what, have your one star and then build role pieces around it that know their role, know exactly what they need to do, and can come together and figure things out. You don't need 3 max guys and then a bunch of nobodies. You need 1 max guy and then a bunch of really good players around him.
You just described Oklahoma City to a
yes,
T.
Yes, that's it. That's right? It. Yeah.
And they got their guy in a trade, fortunately. But they have done such a great job, and I think the Jazz have too, honestly. It's just not as far along. But when you look at what Oklahoma City, like Lou Dort, understanding what he was as an undrafted guy and bringing him in, and he's become one of the best defenders in the league. A couple of years ago, they make a couple moves in the free agent market for Hartenstein and Caruso, who fit them like a glove. Yeah. And I think it was those moves that put him over the hump last year. Shea's phenomenal, Jalen Williams phenomenal, Chet phenomenal, but they get it done in the trenches, in the dirty work. And the guys that are getting that done are the guys they identified and brought in. So to that point, a guy like Flip, think about him as a backup 4 in this league, and what he can get done against second units. Think about Isaiah Collier. And, the other night had played 48 minutes and had 22 assists. So it's exciting because I do think the Jazz view it that way. And I think they've got a really nice thing building here.
I just wonder if that's going to trickle down into college basketball.
I think it will. I think it will because I think everybody got so excited, that they can go spend money, that they spent money sometimes for money's sake without, as you said, the proper amount of how is this really going to fit? BYU brought a kid in. I like him, the Stanton kid but he's sitting on the bench the entire game. There's so many big 6'8", 6'9" guys that can take people on. What's our guy at Utah State? Templin.
Templin, yeah.
I mean, we used to survive on Templins. Yeah. And Noah Hartsock's and Logan Magnuson's and, so I do think they're still perfecting how to blend it.
So I want to be careful here because I don't want to name names, but, Utah State was working on a player, and he wanted X amount of dollars. And Utah State could have pulled it off. They could have made it happen. But instead, they had 2 other players that they could get for that same amount. And they're like, you know what? We can get him at this dollar figure, or we can get these 2 guys, and we actually think these 2 guys fit our culture better. And they've come in and they've done a remarkable job. You know, Colby King and MJ Collins. And those are 2 guys that they could have had one guy that cost, and I'll tell you who that guy is during the break.
MJ Collins has been unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
Man.
But, I mean, that's the thing. You look and you try to find somebody that is going to fit your culture. It's one thing. Talent's got to be the most important thing. And then culture. Are they going to fit into our locker room? Are they going to make it work?
And honestly, that's the evolution that I think we're going to see. This all came on so quickly. Everybody got so excited. But if you're going to really do this and do it well, like you do anything. I mean, it's like RGS does stuff, right?
Look at you.
They don't just
you're already into a groove.
They don't just throw stuff together. They have a plan, right? You go through it. That's how you got to evolve your roster.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Believe it or not, this guy actually has friends.
Nice.
This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome on back. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scott Gerard hanging out with the great Tim Lacombe, longtime assistant coach. Even if you heard, are we okay talking about the Big Rick stories?
Of course. Everything's out in the open.
Now, my first experience with Tim is that he would call in and do a Rick Majerus impersonation that was spot on, and we just referred to him as Big Rick. Now, this is when Rick Majerus was coaching at the University of Utah, and you were on that staff, and you had to go a little incognito there because Rick eventually did find out, right?
He eventually found out. I did it a couple of times while I was working there for him for 2 years, and then I picked up and moved to Austin, Texas to start what I thought was going to be this big-time entrepreneurial venture, and it was more of like a life lesson.
Yeah.
But I was out there, and Rick Majerus actually came out. They played Texas, and he never hung with me when I worked for him, but he wanted to hang with me out there because I was I was safe. He didn't have to beat me up. So we had a great time, went to the game, went to dinner. I dropped him off at the hotel. He's getting out of my car. He said, "Hey, it's great being with you. It was really great being with you. But, if you do my voice on the radio one more time, I'll break your neck." And then he shut the door, leaving me with my thoughts. And I promise that is the absolute 100% God honest truth.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, man, I saw some crazy things. I met some crazy people. I got to hang with Al McGuire, the great Al McGuire back in the day. Billy Packer, Bill Raftery. When they would do our games, Rick would say, spend some time with Tim. He knows our team better than anyone. So I would sit and talk to him about the team. And so it was really a great experience. And I learned how I didn't want to manage.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Brilliant coach.
Oh, my gosh. I seriously, I grew up around the game. I played in high school. When I got to Utah and started working there, it was like I was learning a different language. The game, and so much of what we just talked about, he was all about talking, ball pressure, being in the gaps so your teammate had help. All those things that make a team, that's what he was inflexible about.
So Tim's also on the Jazz pre-half and post, and so can we all agree that the long collective nightmare of the rebuild is over? Now we still have the end of this year, and the Jazz are going to make sure they better tank and get, hold on to that pick instead of conveying it to Oklahoma City. But it did feel like that trade with Austin Ainge, Justin Zanuck, and the rest of that front office going all in on that. It feels like the Jazz okay, time to push to the middle of the table a little bit.
Yeah, it was time. I mean, I think for a couple different reasons. Number one, I think, the time has run its course, and I've said it all year long. If you kind of think about this as a rebuild, as literally rebuilding a house, the Jazz took it all the way down to the studs, and they started to build, and over the last 4 years, seen some pretty neat components added. But I would say that this move you've got your luxury backyard now.
Yes. Yep.
Like we're not talking about now leveling floors or any of that. We're now moving into, hey, we're going to have people over next year. So let's get this thing in order.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, it's time to paint the walls.
Paint the walls, just to do some finish work. And as you know, part of that is what we just talked about, finding the exact right chemistry and fit for the roster.
Your impressions of him as a player, Jaren Jackson Jr.?
I've always been impressed. We had the opportunity, and this was probably the thing that stands out the most. When I first started doing this, COVID hit shortly thereafter. And the reason I'm doing Jazz Radio, I must say, is because of you. Yeah. You and I had a covert meeting at the Pancake House in Sandy.
That's right.
When I quit coaching. And so, yeah, it was during COVID the Jazz played the Grizzlies. And at the point, they were only allowing like 500 people in the arena. And they had to be masked. And they had to be, family members or people in the organization. And so Jake and I went down and sat as close as we could, probably 20th row, and then there were 500 other people, and there was an NBA game going. It was wild. But what stood out to me was his physicality coupled with his size and skill. I think everybody's got warts in their game, but what he does is exactly what the Jazz need. He shores up with size and enforcement, the defensive angle. He offers some protection to Walker and Lowry. The Jazz all of a sudden become massive when you think about Walker at the 5, 7 feet tall, 7'4" wingspan or 7'6" wingspan. Ace is out there on the perimeter with a 7'1" wingspan, and now you add this guy who's 6'10", 7 feet with a 7'4" wingspan as well, and skilled. I think it fits what the Jazz want to do. So I think it's going to be a really big step to what they're going to be.
David and I talked about this yesterday. This doesn't happen if Keontae George doesn't elevate himself like he has. Because then you're like, okay, well, we hit on this guy, so that pushes us on the process a little bit further. Now we can make a jump on this. If not, Larry Markkanen may be traded, and they may have to go back down to the studs. Instead, we're putting finishing work and laying carpet right now.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think Keontae's big step this year, fast forward everything at least a year. To have a guy that is playing the way he's playing, but it's beyond that. Like everybody in the org that deals with him talks about the step he's taken in maturity, the step he's taken in accountability, the step he's taken in leadership. And so, man, kudos to the staff. Kudos to Will Hardy. I think Will Hardy, and I know like people, he doesn't coach defense. Complaining about defense in a rebuild is like complaining about sawdust on a wood floor that hasn't been finished yet. Of course there's going to be some mess, but this dude at the level that you've got to, which is on the personal level, he connects with these guys. And I've watched it. Like what he's done with Keontae one-on-one and the trust that's been built, that to me was the bridge that allowed him to do what he's done.
I was at Jazz Media Day before the season started, and I was talking to Booner, and Booner specifically talked about Keontae George. He goes, watch him. And I'm like, don't we kind of know who he is? And he's like, nope, we don't, because he's turned a corner, and he talked about the issues that he addressed in the offseason in terms of maturity, making sure he was around the right people, making sure that he really focused in on basketball. And there's a decision players have to make at a point in their career where they're like, okay, am I just going to be in this for 4 or 5 years and, make some really good money and then just flame out and nobody ever sees me again? Or do I really want to make an impact and make generational money and be around this league for a long time and get my, name on a ring maybe sometime before it's all said and done? And Keontae George made that decision in his work ethic and how he addressed off the court and on the court coming into this. And props to Booner. Booner saw it immediately and was like, he's going to be great. I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. It didn't take long to realize Booner had it right spot on.
Well, just as an aside, one of the cool things working in and around the Jazz is I've gotten that fraternity, and people have seen Ron forever. I'm here to tell you, you won't find a better human being.
Oh, no, not at all.
Like, we are so blessed to have what he is in the community. And then, if you ever need a scramble, an ace on a scramble, call Booner. But you're right. And I actually heard that from 4 or 5 people within the organization, because I wasn't out on Keontae, but I was close, because I felt like the stuff he had to do, I wasn't sure if he's going to be willing to do it. And he proved me wrong. And you watch games now, and he's the last dude out of the huddle with the clipboard talking to Will going, he's into the details. And he just had to take that big step into the circle with everybody else, and then everybody else, they made him the leader. That's all that had to happen, is he just needed to come in.
So tell me about the strengths and weaknesses of this lineup from a coach's perspective. Walker Kessler at the 5, Jaren Jackson at the 4, Laurie at the 3, Ace Bailey at the 2, Keontae at the 1.
So obviously I think the strength you have, and Walker showed this year in the beginning. I mean, he started the season like J.J. Redick, shooting threes. But bottom line is, I think you in time and in theory have 5 shooters at every position. And as I watch the NBA every night, the one thing, it's no different than right now I'm looking for a new house. It's all about location, location, location. Basketball is all about space, space, space. Majerus used to say it, and he said it just like this: spacing is offense, and offense is spacing. And it's the truth.
Yeah.
So what the Jazz can do from a spacing standpoint is, when there are other teams out there that have not the size and there's a mouse in the house that you can go attack, they want to hide him on Lowry, they want to hide him on Ace, they want to hide him on Jaren. Okay, we're going to run a offense is really going to point. So I think he can play matchup bingo as good as anybody in the league. And then, the fact that they're all skilled, but the big question has always been defense. Defense is all about length.
Yeah.
It's all about length and physicality. So you counter, when the Jazz were really struggling with Conley and Mitchell, they were so small. And every night it was the guards lighting them up. So you take away, you use space to your advantage on the offensive side. You actually, space now becomes your friend on the defensive end. And you can really put some schemes in, and that's where I've been impressed with Will, that fit your personnel. But to have Walker protecting the rim, a former defensive player of the year anchoring that, I think instantly the defense goes up. And just as an activity the other day, because I love AI, I shot, not Allen Iverson, the new tool.
Yeah.
But I shot, with Jaren Jackson Jr., and the makeup of the West is presently constituted in contracts. Where does this put the Jazz? And it instantly said next year 4 to 6. So I actually believe it. I've said all along they'll win 45 games next year no matter what. Without this move, I think that this moves them into that area where they could win 50-55.
By the way, to your point, Will Hardy, master at hunting mismatches out there.
He's amazing.
Does a tremendous job. If there's whether it's the mouse in the house, or I heard a football coach, we got a pigeon we're going to throw rocks at. Whatever the case is, he finds that guy, and he's going to make him pay. Yeah,
and sometimes it's not just posting them up, but
no.
You get a lazy defender that you can backdoor or screen that there's not going to fight the screen. Yeah, they take all that data, and so that's going to be the fun part on the offensive side. The defensive side is going to be much improved just by addition.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's, when you talk about Will Hardy and defense, and to your point, a lot of people are like, well, great offense, but this defense is atrocious. Do you really have defensive tools? They really, especially with Walker Kessler out this year, they really had no strong defensive presence on this team. You didn't have the ammunition. You didn't have the horses to play great defense.
But I also think you're in a development stage. How many businesses have started without all of the answers to how they're going to do everything, but the plan to get there?
Yeah.
And that's honestly, in my mind, this year particularly, when Walker went out, of course your defense is going to take a hit. So they've basically had Kevin Love, Nurkic, and those guys, K-Love doesn't play back-to-backs.
Nope.
So you got Nurkic, and then after him you put Flip at the 5, and a lot of times Kyle Anderson had to play the backup 5. So with no rim protection, of course your defense isn't going to be great.
That's Tim Lacombe. I'm Scott Gerard. Timmy hanging out with us for the next couple days. Coming up a little bit later on, boy, we got a busy show for you. Caleb Lohner's going to join us coming up in the 2 o'clock hour.
I knew you're a Bronco guy.
I am a Broncos guy.
We had to bring some orange in and talk about the NFL stuff.
Lloyd, you going to be okay with that? Lloyd loves it when we talk Broncos.
He's a huge Bronco guy from everything.
No, I'm actually not, but hey, that's great.
Do I have to become a Raiders fan while I'm up here?
No, you don't have to.
Well, I know Hans
was a lifelong Raider
fake.
fan. So.
It was fake.
I don't know about that, Lloyd.
What I think it was.
Let's not go there.
I think it was
fake.
connection to stay with the theme. I think he just wanted to keep harmony amongst the group.
Yeah, and I think
that's what it was.
He wanted to make connections that made Lloyd feel comfortable, and so he went out on a limb and put his put his vulnerability on the line for the Raiders, and they burnt him. And now it cost him a little bit. Emotionally, he was so invested in that Raider team, and you guys did him dirty. And who knows? Maybe that's why he decided to walk away.
My current boss is a Raider fan. He has a Raider truck hitch.
Really?
Yeah, so like when I drive up and there's a bunch of black trucks, but I see the Raider hitch, I know I've got to go in.
You're like, uh-oh.
If he's not there, I just pull around to, go grab a drink and then, he's there now. I got to go.
I got to go hit Sonic real quick. And then,
There's the Raiders.
Yeah. All right, 1247. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scott Gerard hanging out with the coach, Tim Lacombe. You hear him on Jazz pre, half, and post. And, of course, you also catch it. You've seen him roaming the sidelines at BYU on Dave Rowe's staff. How's Dave doing, by the way?
He's doing great. I try to talk to him every week if I'm diligent. And, honestly, I think he's in a really good place. Living in St. George.
Awesome. Good for him.
Liking the warm weather in the Red Rock. And, yeah, I see him often at games. He'll come up and see games, too. So I think he and Cheryl are doing good.
By the way, I know you're in the building for basketball. You ever sneak over there in the middle of the game and watch a little hockey when the Jazz are on the road?
You kidding me? I'm all about those Mammoth. It's freezing in there, though.
Oh, they do
you
keep it
wear
cold,
your
don't
coat
they?
Now.
Yeah. Big win yesterday for the Mammoth. They knock off the Red Wings 4-1, so they pick up 2 points going into the long break. In fact, look at that. Greg's rocking the Utah Mammoth hat. So they will not play again until February 25th. Almost 3 weeks off. And you worry a little bit about that rest because they're playing so well going into this break.
I heard Nick Olchek on the show on Ben and Jake's show earlier, and I think first of all, he's a national treasure.
Yes.
That dude's amazing.
I know.
He is like immersed in hockey so well and can speak to everything. So I enjoyed the segment, but there's a lot on the line for these guys in this Olympic, break to be able to go back and represent countries. But he was talking about what a nice thing it is in the middle of a playoff run to have for the young guys to have their legs for a little while. But they get right back at it facing the Avalanche. So it's going to get hairy right out of the gate.
So, from your standpoint as a coach, okay, so the only thing I can kind of equate it to in basketball is maybe get that first round bye in a conference tournament. And there's always that rest versus rust. And I've seen it work both ways where a team is rested up and they come out like gangbusters. And then others that, hey, that team played the night before. They're loose. They know the court. They know everything that's going on. And they come out and shock the team the next night.
Well, God bless the Mountain West Conference. You've experienced this one.
Yes.
Where the number one seed, you do get the bye, but you're playing against a team that played already on the court. And then, you're playing against a team that's already played on the court. And then you go in there and they make you play at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
And you're like, hey, thank you for that because we've played so many 1 o'clock games all year.
Yeah.
That's quite an advantage you're giving the number one seed.
Yeah.
But I got my issues with all the conferences we were in. Sometimes I wondered if the guys that did the schedule and made the decisions first drank wine.
Yeah, probably. I've wondered that many times. Yeah.
You're going to Laramie this weekend.
I am going to Laramie, yeah.
Speaking of drinking wine, that's about the only thing that'll get you through it.
Yeah, it may be, not that I would condone such a thing, but maybe a little bit harder alcohol when you go to Laramie.
Or at least a Monster.
Just something to really kind of take the edge off because that's a rough place.
In all ways.
Oh, always.
Every
yeah.
way.
Everybody there has a little bit of a hard edge to them because, look, if you're going to live in Laramie, that's not for the faint of heart. So that's a rough crowd. There was a time we were coming in on a football trip and got off the plane and we were taking a bus into the hotel, which, by the way, there's only two of them. Yeah.
But the new one's pretty good, though.
It's not bad.
I mean, it at least isn't the Motor Lodge we stayed in for years.
And we're driving by, and driving by this corner, and it's a bar, and this lady, I swear she had to be 75 plus. She stumbles out of this bar, looks at the bus, and just does the double barrel. Just, it's like, okay.
Welcome to Laramie.
Welcome to Laramie, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.